Howdy, and welcome to Risky Standard, an actual play podcast featuring a rowdy group of best friends playing tabletop role-playing games together. I'm your host and your GM, Mitch Broesder. You can find me over on Twitter at MagnesiumB. You can find the show on Twitter at Standard Risky. You can also find the show's Discord, link to that over in the show notes, where we're usually posting maps, character sheets, different updates from the game, dumb memes about different things in the game. You can also always hit us up at riskystandardpod@gmail.com if you want to send any submissions for naming some of the different things that we have in our game. With me today, I've got Pete Loftus.
That's right. I'm Pete. My idols are dead. My enemies are in power. I'm ready to rock. I'm also on Twitter at the same place that I say every time. There's not a whole lot going on there.
We got Malcolm Hall here today.
Yep, that's exactly how you say it. Happy Friday. There's a rare Friday sesh today. Wherever you are, I don't care what day it is. It's Friday.
Hey, it's always Friday somewhere, baby.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we have young Timothy Mans here with us as well.
Yes. By the time you guys listen to this, WrestleMania just happened, and wow. Right? Wow. Anyway, go back and look. We did pay someone to hold up a Risky Standard Rocks sign. So if you go back and look into the crowd, I'm sure you'll be able to find it. Keep a close eye on it.
Right before Cody Rhodes separated the Rock's head from his shoulders, you can see Risky Standard in the background very briefly, right before the blood covers the camera lens.
And that's where everyone's Patreon money is going.
Worth saying, WrestleMania will not have just been over when this episode airs, but will in fact be like 2 months behind.
Which means it's free on YouTube. So go ahead and look that up.
And today we are continuing our campaign of Beam Saber by Austin Ramsey. As always, you can find a link to Beam Saber in the show notes, Austin's itch.io page. And without too much preamble, we are hopping back in to the ongoing mission that sees our squad attempting to liberate illicit Concordat cargo off of a train operated by the Night Flyer Syndicate. Earlier in this mission, we saw our squad ambush the train, launch a very successful attack on it, only to discover that concealed within one of the train cars was Rhodes' longtime rival, Hyacinth Corrin, the Looking Glass Knight, piloting his own mech, the Weight of Ascension. And really, we spent a lot of last session with the squad attempting to fight back against this powerful Concordat thaumaturge who kind of took the opportunity to display the fundamental power that the Concordat possesses. Last we had left off, the train was split in half by Desmond's earlier sabotage, rear and front locomotive each with 2 cars attached to it. And that rear locomotive had been destroyed by Rhodes, using it in a failed attempt to just crush Hyacinth with it. Meanwhile, Des and the Mercuria had kind of launched an attack against Hyacinth that had left him and his mech down on the ground beside the damaged train car. Meanwhile, Carta is still up on the ridge, having successfully dealt with both of the Dirks and launched a salvo of blows against Hyacinth. Finally stopping after Hyacinth reflected one of these shots from Carta's own sniper rifle, successfully reversing it and sending it flying back at Carta. Rhodes had finally recovered from Hyacinth's powerful counterattack, emerging from the dust to reveal the Redshifts' secondary form, a sort of fundamentally charged orichalcum evolution of the Redshifts' normal appearance.
Say that's right.
The Great Basin Centipede that had been the reason for the train stopping in the first place had kind of coiled itself around the front half of the train and was attempting unsuccessfully to dig its way inside. Somewhere up in the air, Zed and Bitter are in the aerolifter, circling around the battlefield, kind of providing recon and assistance should you call on them. And I guess the Drovers are maybe still somewhere in the area, right? We saw Cygnus Strand and the other Dust Cutters kind of take off into the ridges. We've not seen them since, but that's still a body in play here. Is there any questions there, or any last minute things we want to touch on before we kind of hop into exactly where we left off?
I don't think so.
So then, I think, where we had left off, where we were at. Hyacinth in the Weight of Ascension with these great ceramic kind of flower petal panels behind it was floating in the air, having just used one of its mirrored portals to redirect a shot from Carta back at him. And that was when, Rhodes, you had kind of emerged from the dust. You had powered up. You had changed into the Redshift secondary mode, kind of unveiling the more advanced form of the Redshift signature particle lance, turning it into this kind of you described it as almost like a probability weapon,
right?
Having activated the rage engine, something we've seen you do before with the Redshift, kind of enhancing your connection with the machine and your ability to pilot it, but at the cost of kind of losing yourself over to it. And I think where we left off, right, Hyacinth had just created another one of these shimmering mirrored portals directly behind him, kind of preparing to reposition in some way, it seems. And if I remember correctly, Rhodes, you had decided to kind of launch yourself through the air at Hyacinth, attempting to, I think you had said, get him away from the immediate scene of this battle, or kind of protect your fellow squad mates from his ongoing attacks, at least temporarily.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably where I want to kind of hop right back in on, right? Is I can pick right that up. You can kind of reset the scene a little bit here, and you can kind of tell me what this looks like, what Rhodes is doing.
Sure. So I think where we kind of left things, like you've done a good job of setting the scene. So Hyacinth's still sort of hovering overhead. There's this kind of mirrored, portal, Quicksilver mirror portal behind him. I think I've been cooking on this for a week since we played last too, but I think this secondary form of the Redshift is, this sort of melting iridescence. I think this fundamental kind of iridescence is almost like dripping, right? It looks fluid, probably some sort of inverse of Quicksilver here, right? There's some kind of parody to this maybe. And so it's after I kind of came out of the dust, is he in a retaliatory position, just kind of watching what's happening? Is he powering up for another one of these high powered salvos?
I think you can see, right, the portal has started to open, and I think we even get the edges of Hyacinth's wing panels are starting to fall back into the mirrored portal, right? Are starting to get, he's about to maybe not escape, but reposition, and it's unclear to Rhodes where he's going to come back out at. So there's this kind of microsecond here of you can see where he's at. He's starting to pull back in this portal, but because you've activated the rage engine, because you are operating at the kind of the peak of the Redshift's abilities, right? I imagine that each one of these moments is, breaking down into this almost near infinite spread of time where Rhodes can, using the kind of expanded processing power of the Redshift, calculate each of these infinitesimal shifts, right?
Yeah.
The slight twitch of the ceramic wing as it starts to dip back into the portal, right, happens in a microsecond, but it seems almost in slow motion to Rhodes as these things are happening, right?
That's sick. I like that. I think this is almost like bullet time, right? Rhodes moving normally, I think, can kind of almost like an out of body experience, kind of seeing this. But I think you're right that everything is in 1/32, slow. And I think I'm going to just seize this opportunity. When we played last shooting, when the Redshift was kind of in a ascendant state before, we talked about Rhodes' voice being more than just his own, almost I'm thinking of the flanged voice effect, in Mass Effect. The Turians have that weird, almost dual tone.
Mm-hmm.
It's there's a second voice in there, and I think he would just sort of call out after Hyacinth, right? Kind of screaming his name. And I think in this kind of split second here, as the wings start dipping back into this, I want to, in the possibility lens here, right? I think that there's all of these scenarios kind of playing out quickly, right? Which is second attack. I think that Rhodes has these almost hallucinations of the Mercuria split in half, right? Carta on the hill, the shell kind of powers through it. And I think the only option here is to charge, and I'm going to try and just push him through this thing, and I'm going to fight him wherever it spits out. So I'm going to try and throw the whole weight of this, Redshift into the Weight of Ascension and kind of hurtle with the lance pointed towards him into the portal thing.
Hell yeah. I like that a lot. Let's just get right into it. Let's start rolling some dice, right?
Yeah, sure. I'm thinking this is also like the rage engine part of this, I think, is mainly driving here, right? Like, and when the Redshift and Rhodes like lash out, it is like intent to kill. More vicious, I think, than Rhodes would even probably okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. What action do you think this is here?
I wanted to try destroy. Since, you know, you might smash a building with a wrecking ball. That's kind of the action that's in my head here. Is like I want to collide with the weight of Ascension with like the force of every possible impact.
Okay, yeah, I like that. So destroy. I think you got the rage engine. So I think that this is risky. I mean, I'm torn between risky great or risky standard or like desperate great here. Because you resisted possibility hallucinations. You didn't resist death wish, right? Is that
right?
What we talked about last time? So yeah, I think this is like a desperate action. I think there's like a great opportunity for consequence here, but I think it's going to have great effect if you succeed. You are, you know, the rage engine, yeah, like the piloting sort of ability it gives you access to, this like, you know, and like infinitesimal like ability to like calculate every chance. I think that if you manage to connect here, this is going to have great effect. But there's so much that could go wrong, and with the death wish effect still in effect, I think, you know, you're not choosing the possibility that's the safest for you. You're choosing the possibility that's going to have the greatest effect, probably.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think this is desperate, great effect. I think that will give you a experience point in expertise for rolling a desperate action. And so to destroy, because your alternate mode, you have 4 pips in destroy, right?
Yeah, the secondary mode lets me convert 3 vehicle action points for 3 others and convert 2 items of load for new vehicle gear. So I swapped out a couple of pips, but that gives me 4 in destroy, 2 in battle, and 1 in maneuver. So I'm going to roll 4d6.
You could push yourself here if you wanted to expend a quirk, but 4 feels pretty strong to begin with.
Yeah, that's pretty good. We'll see. I say that now.
Yeah, right. So this is desperate, great effect.
Okay, desperate, great. That's a 6, baby.
Woo! Hell yeah.
That is a 6. That is a big 6.
We'll love to see a player succeed.
Truly.
Players out here winning. Oh, we stay winning. Especially when I have this death drive.
Yeah, no way this could go.
Love to see a player with a death drive.
So Hyacinth was at 4 out of 8 segments on his challenge clock. That is going to put him at 7 out of 8.
Oh!
Also worth saying, that was a 2, a 6, and 2 3s. Is that 6?
Yeah, peek behind the curtain on that one. That was on the
close
line,
call.
baby.
Yeah, could have gone different.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Before we get too much further into this, so his challenge clock is 7 of 8. I actually have filled my beliefs track with Hyacinth, and I have 1 drive clock filled.
Oh, yes. So you filled your beliefs clock with him. So give me 1 second to look at what that does again, exactly.
Just curious, in case we end up ticking that last pip over.
So the challenge clock represents, I'll say, you know, before I even look this other thing up, right? The challenge clock represents basically his presence during this mission. If you fill that clock, he will be out of, you know, he will no longer be a thorn in your side for the rest of this mission. You will rid yourself of him one way or another.
Okay.
By filling the belief clock with him, which I think you did last time. But basically, the way filling the belief clock works is the same way it works with another pilot. So the next time you tick this, which you will, if you fill his challenge clock this time, you will tick this clock one more time. That will complete it. What that lets you then do is ask a truth relating to one of your beliefs. You will get an experience point, and this clock resets, and you kind of have a new understanding of your rival. And so you have three beliefs written with Hyacinth here. They are: I knew you on Feldspar. The Hyacinth I knew is still in there. And Hyacinth believes in the Concordat more than the Concordat believes in Hyacinth. And once you add 1 more tick to this clock and fill it over, you can kind of basically ask the truth about one of these things. Right? Is this true? Right? And the player of that character, in this case me, has to answer honestly here. So something to think about as this mission continues. However, it does take 2 drive clocks to be able to permanently remove a rival. So you have 1 full drive clock, you don't have a second full one. So you will not be able to like fully end Hyacinth here today. You know, by the way the rules work, the way drives and rivals work, you will be able to fill this challenge clock, it seems, almost certainly, right? He's only got 1 segment left. But Hyacinth is not, his story is not over today. You will need to be able to spend 2 drive clocks to like finally defeat him.
Okay.
But yeah, 7 out of 8 segments. You know, you're taking him into the portal. That was your kind of stated intent.
I mean, as a pilot and a player, I want to know what's in there. What is this like ether that he's traveling through?
And so you're coming like lashing out with this kind of this possibility lance as you do so. Am I understanding the?
I think so. Like, I'm imagining this as kind of being like, you know, maybe 2 cross swipes and just driving forward, like that kind of wrecking ball punching through a building.
So yeah, let's like lean into that destroy, right? Each of these blows with the lance, I think, is ruinous against the weight of ascension. I think, you know, some of these ceramic panels kind of fold inwards to try and protect the weight of ascension from them.
Mm-hmm.
And they are shattered, broken apart, incinerated in places by the kind of like fundamental plasmic energy of the lance. But I think that when you swipe, you know, to really highlight like the destroy action here, I don't think that you just get Hyacinth. I think that this energy flows over and past him as you swipe, and like the canyon wall behind him on the other side is like seared and cut into and cratered by the force of each lance blow. You know, there's like rocks tumbling down.
That's cool.
The blooms are going wild along the walls as well, right? They're like in overdrive, just bloom like this burst of color that fills the entire length of the canyon around you. And, you know, it's 1 strike, a 2nd strike, and then you thrust and carry him forward into the portal. And I think that you are both swallowed by this quicksilver liquid. And before we see what you see, I kind of like want to cut for a moment here to Carta and Desmond. Des especially, you're like right next to this. Your entire the frame of the Mercuria shakes with every blow of the Redshift's possibility lance. But you're there to see, this transformation of Rhodes's machine into this kind of strange alien-looking kind of thing. And then, his sudden attack on Hyacinth. And all of this happens, you know, I think, again, for Rhodes, the time is slowed down. For us, it's almost like a sequence of moments before they are both in through that mirrored portal, and it just sort of winks out of existence, and they're both gone.
Blip.
Oh shit!
Yeah, on the comms. Fuck.
Are they really gone? I think that we know that they're really gone, but I think that Des wants to do like a scan or something.
You want to do like a little gather information just to scan real quick?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think this is there's no risk here because Hyacinth is in fact gone.
I think, I don't know if this is just for like we are both doing a scan, you know, as Des is maybe going like, what's going on? I'm looking down here. I'm doing a bigger scan over the top of like, you know, the canyon that we're in, seeing if I can notice anything outside on
trying to find a heat signature or something like
anything,
that.
Especially if
the
storm has been
like,
gathering.
Are they like just cloaked now, or you know, is something going on? But can we do a group gather
search,
information?
Yeah, why not? This is just like a gather information,
or I could do it and then he's assisting.
Let's do it as a group action because I think that's going to be more generous to you guys.
1d6.
It's scan. I don't know what Carta has for scan.
I got one.
Oh
scan.
All right, so we're each rolling 1d6. I think this is Desmond leading this because you're the first one.
Oh yeah, I have 2 in scan. Wow, I've never used this before.
No, it's very useful.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
You got a 6. I got a 3.
All right.
Yeah.
So Desmond, you do take 1 stress here.
Oh, great.
But honestly, that's like full success as you guys' like scanning apparatuses like link up. I think you can sense, like, almost right away, Rhodes and Hyacinth are not in the area at all. You don't get any kind of, like, ping. All you get from, like, trying to scan for their signatures is, like, the ambient kind of, like, fundamental energy that's been left in the wake of their disappearance. But you don't get, like, you know, you're trying to, like, you know, and you've got, like, right, like, direct comms access to Rhodes's machine. Like, it's easy for you to, like, always pinpoint it. And you're just like getting it like it's not even on the same planet. You're not getting anything.
It's dust. I'm seeing nothing. It's like I'm picking up their energies that's being carried on the storm. I'm seeing nothing. They're gone.
Yeah, I think that they've gone through one of those portals. Okay, let's just try and make the most of it now.
I think on a 6, though, a thing that you do pick up that is not what you're looking for. I think that, you get different fundamental signatures reading from inside these cargo containers. Something that is not exactly the same as, but like matches the kind of like profile of Hyacinth's kind of fundamental machinery.
Okay.
I think, without even having to look into them now, based on like the scanning information you're getting, you can tell there are weapons inside of these cargo trucks. There are these cargo cars. There are fundamental machines inside of them, not just the usual like supplies and goods that the trains normally bring.
The signatures we're picking up from this, are they located in both sides of the now separated train, or are they just on the side that Hyacinth was on?
Both sides.
Okay. I think Carta communicates this to Des. I'm not seeing them, but I'm picking up something real big inside these trains. I don't know exactly what we're up against with Hyacinth, but if we can get into sight those trains, there might be something that will help us if he does come back.
It's a great idea.
You stay there on the back side of the train. I'm going to go head up the front, try to get the worm off or the centipede or whatever off.
Yeah,
it's funny you should say it.
Beat that worm off.
Yeah, I already said backside of the train. I was trying to move past it. Let's go.
You're beating it off on the backside now? This is a
Friday night game, baby. We're playing Risky Standard After Dark.
You are now listening to Risky Standard.
We're going to go real hypey on these from now on.
I think, as you mentioned the centipede, Carta, as you kind of like redirect your focus back to the train, you and Desmond are both able to realize something. Because Desmond, we talked about it like last time, in the wake of all of these impacts around you, the dust swirling around, Hyacinth's like fundamental interference, your cloaking has gone off. And I think we talked about the Mercuria being in its quadrupedal mode as well last time.
Yes.
Kind of scurrying about.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got this almost, insectile quality to it, moving around on all fours.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that kind of movement, that kind of quality, as the dust has started to clear from Rhodes' attack, that the basin centipede takes notice of.
Oh, I'm like a tasty little treat now.
You are, right? You're about the right size for the kind of thing that it likes to eat, right? Like an oversized triops. And so I think from behind you, you hear the kind of screech of metal as it's kind of tears away another panel from the side of this cargo car.
Fuck.
And then kind of rears up, its chittering pincers clacking as its
not
head...
the chittering pincers. No.
And it kind of like rears up slightly, its head kind of moving sinuously through the air as it kind of takes notice of you. And it kind of starts to, crawl forward, disentangling itself from the train as it frees itself up for a prey that looks a little bit less difficult to crack into.
As the it rears up. Carta wants to try to do a classic shot at the underbelly, like missing link in the dragon's belly.
It doesn't work that way because it's rearing up facing Desmond, right? Its back is to you.
Oh shit! I'm that far down in the canyon. You're right.
Yeah,
okay.
You're on the other side of the canyon. Yeah, so its back is up to you. And another thing actually happens though as it kind of starts to disengage from the train, Carta. Something that pulls your attention from its motions towards Desmond, which is that front train, slowly at first, almost imperceptibly, starts creeping forward.
Ah, fucker.
As the centipede starts to disengage, it's moving like a mile an hour, 2 miles an hour, 3 miles, just slowly starting to move as the centipede takes its weight off of it. This front, half of the train starts to move forward. The rear is a loss now, right? The rear locomotive has been destroyed by Rhodes, but this front engine is still, it's battered by the centipede, but it's operative, and it is starting to slowly creep forward, each second picking up another little bit of speed.
Okay. Well, then if that's the case, with the centipede rearing up, going at Des, and seeing the train move, Carta kind of communicates that to Des, being like, you keep giving the big bug a run around. This train, we can't let it leave. We've done too much work. It's starting to roll out of here. I'm going to make sure that it has... I guess it's not on a track, right? Fuck. I was going to say take the track out. Well, if I can't take out the track, I'm going to take out as much of that front of it as I can. Is the Mercury up for playing a little cat and mouse?
Well, I think this is what it was made for. We'll put into the ultimate test right now.
I'll be back as soon as I can. You distract it, and hopefully I'll have some shots that I can fire when I'm done. But I'm not letting this train leave. We've done too much work. We're not letting this leave this canyon. I'm not going to.
I'll try and kite it for as long as I can.
So yeah, who's making the first move here? Is Desmond trying to dance away from the centipede, or is Carta taking the shot first?
Well, I guess I'll say I'm going first. I think Carta, from where he was in the canyon, is, he was towards the front of it, but I think now he's definitely heading maybe a little bit off the ridge, or not even a little off the ridge. I think he's trying to like kind of jump down off of it and get in front of what would be the moving part. And I think it is just kind of, put in shot after shot into the front of it until it stops. Like maybe not trying to destroy it entirely, but putting enough shots into it that you're not rolling forward anymore. If that means knocking it sideways or whatever it is, but it is getting right in front of it so that anyone who would still be there on it, like keeping it operating, either wants to get off it and ditches it so they can't operate it, or it's blown sideways. You know what I mean? Like,
so you're hopping down there and you're just opening up fire on it.
Yeah, I see the like people from the train. The dust is blowing. All these shit is happening around them. They think they have a moment to head forward, back on their track, get out of here. They see the semaphore jump down, dust as it like clears the canyon walls, stands up, and just before they even know it, they're just hearing bah, bah, like as he walks forward, just loosing shots on it.
So I think to start, what do you got? Is bombard still?
Yeah, I mean, unless you're making me roll for going.
No, I think the jump down is just is a cool.
Yeah, I think it is bombard. I think it's just laying shot after shot.
So I think this is,
or is this more destroy?
I can see destroy as well.
Overwhelming destruction through roughly. Yeah, do you know what? This might be a bit more destroy. It's like
here's what I'll give you. I think it's risky limited if you are using bombard. I think it's risky standard with destroy. Because destroy is more accurate, I think, to the effect you're trying to achieve here.
Yeah, I'm doing destroy then. I think that's more of what it is. Even if bombard, I got 2 pips in it. Like this is more destroy. It is just trying to keep that front locomotive from going anywhere.
Worth just throwing it out there too. You have not. I don't think so, unless I missed it. I don't think you have clarified like a special ammunition here. I don't know if there's one that you want to use in this case to like increase your effect, but that is still like an option on the table for you.
Interesting. Yeah, that. What would be a train stopping ammunition?
I mean, we know it has like thick armor, right? This is like a heavily armored train. That's
right.
Like
just,
definitely.
Do you have any like a fucked up like chain shot or like a weird bullet?
What's a chain shot? I don't know what that is.
I just watched the part in Shogun where they're testing out English cannons in like feudal Japan, and they're showing off.
Is that like
chain shot, which is where it like breaks apart, and there's like a chain. They used to do it to break apart masts and boats in like naval warfare. Just basically a chain with 2 cannon parts. You got anything like? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that would be an interesting way to do it. That whatever we end up calling the round, but yeah, something that is like it's not just piercing so much, like it's tearing it apart, like. It's shredding it, like it's shrapnel-y kind of rounds, but that are just like breaking it apart as it is hit by rounds.
What is it in Neuromancer that he has? It's like a monofilament wire.
Monofilament wire.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like what if it's like a chain, right? It's some kind of like heat wire or something that like slices through the metal and like makes big cuts through it as you're like firing.
Love that. Yeah, it's just cleaving pieces of it like off, so it's becoming less and less of an object as it comes towards Carta.
Yeah, if you want to say that's what you're using here, and I'd say that this would be risky great effect.
Okay, yeah, let's do that.
Then this is destroy, risky, great effect. You have 1 dice to start. You could always push yourself here by spending a quirk, or Desmond could try and assist you, but Des also has some other things to be worrying about.
Do you know what? Yeah, I'll expend a quirk. I'm gonna expend the physical camouflage. Just with the idea of him hopping down off these canyon walls and kind of like standing upright and walking towards it as much as the semaphore can. Any of the like, ghillie suit elements to it that are there aren't really like a part of it. We've talked about it before, like the kind of weird cape that goes over it maybe gets tossed off and it's just walking toward the train and firing.
Cape gets thrown off as it. Yeah, that looks dope.
Cool.
Yeah,
that's
cool.
Yeah,
that's cool. That's pretty good.
Yeah, thrown over the shoulder.
The dust clears and it's just coming off and it's walking towards firing.
Oh yeah. I love when someone has to take a cape off to really show they're in it
To
for
do
a
their
fight.
work,
That's
yeah.
great. Yeah,
If
yeah.
you haven't thrown it to the ground with a heavy thud, have you even really taken it off?
Yeah, truly. Go ahead and roll. I think that's 2d6 then.
All right, rolling. Oh, 3 and a 2. The cape came off for no reason.
It stuck around your head, and now your pants fell off too.
Well, so it's worth saying that the weather is at 3 out of 4 segments right now. And so the sand is like getting blown into the canyon from over the top, right? It's swirling up the dust. And so it's hard to like line up your shot, and your gun is swaying from the force of the wind that's like pouring into the canyon. And so I think it's like one shot hits it, but it just like kind of cuts off like a corner of the side and then slams into the canyon wall. And then like another hits the ground beside it, and another miss, and like one that hits, but it's not enough to stop the train, and it's starting to pick up speed now. It's moving closer to you, and I think you still like got a breath here. I don't think it's like run you down yet, but it's picking up speed faster and faster, starting to like drive down the length of the canyonway. And you know what? I think like right when Carta's got it like square up, like you're like about to line up the shot. I think what happens here is you miss because a bolt of like heat lightning strikes the ground in front of you. I'm going to tick this weather clock to 4 out of 4 as this micro sandstorm finally blows in, and you are blanketed with like sheets of sand starting to pour in over the top of the canyon walls. This burst of heat lightning hits the ground in front of you, and I don't think I'm gonna hit you with a damage here yet, but I do think that this situation is gonna go from risky to desperate for whatever your next roll is.
Okay.
As the storm makes the situation so hectic and difficult to like deal with that any action you take next, is going to be from the desperate position. And so you fire the shot, but the bolt of heat lightning hits the ground, creating this shower of like glass crystals in the air as the sand in the air is instantly crystallized by the heat of the lightning. And your shot goes wide, right? This chain shot just goes spinning off into the air, and then gets picked up by the wind and hurled off into the distance. And the train is barreling down the canyonway headed towards you now. But before we get your next like moment with it, I want to like cut back to Desmond. Who is, as this train's starting to pull away from you, the centipede is like now on the canyon floor, and it has kind of, like half reared up, and it is like, doing the thing where it's like its head is kind of started swaying back and forth. You can see it's like rearing up, ready to strike.
How close is it?
Yeah, it's like 30 feet away, 40 feet away. It's like pretty close, relatively speaking, but it's like, a few mechs distance away from you. You've got like a little bit of breathing room. It's not right on top of you yet, but you were not that far away from it to begin with.
I guess I could shoot at it.
You can?
Yeah, and that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Are you like? So what does this look like? Give me like a little bit of a picture here. Tell me what's happening, so we can talk about what.
I think that I am trying to run away from it and shoot at it at the same time. I'm trying to kind of like guide it away.
Okay. So is this more about hurting it, or more about like trying to like lure it away from?
It's more about trying to lure it away. It's not really about dealing damage. I don't really think that I'm in a position to deal too much damage to it.
Okay, I like that. Yeah. What's your route? How are you kind of like? Where are you going with it? What are you doing?
I am just going to run towards the back of the train and kind of like loop around it, and maybe just keep it like going around the train in a circle. Or I'm going to start.
Okay.
I'm going to start doing that. I'm not saying, we'll see what happens. But
I think that this is, I think it's probably the moment before the weather has really turned.
Mm-hmm.
I think this could still be risky for you.
Okay.
I think risky standard probably. This sounds like maneuver to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're just kind of like firing off these little shots, like running away, kind of like trying to like draw its attention away.
Yes, I'm going to keep it at 2d6 for this one.
Yeah. This is 2d6, risky standard, I think.
Oh, 3. Really bad.
Ooh, that is another failure. I think, it kind of moved pretty slowly towards the train originally. And as it was like attacking the train, it was still moving kind of slowly. And so I think you've kind of like been led to expect that this centipede moves at a certain pace, right? But now suddenly kind of like faced with a potential prey object that is like smaller than it, that is the kind of thing it normally snatches up. As you know, I think as the Mercuria's legs hit the sand and start kind of pulling it back, this centipede lunges forward, and it's so much faster than Desmond is expecting it to be, right? It shoots forward, its body suddenly straightening out as it kind of like snaps at you. And these two front pinchers like come sweeping around, crashing together. And I think that they're going to catch the Mercuria. I think this is going to be damage here.
Yep.
I think that this is, you're like dancing away from it as it shoots at you, and you're just a second too slow. There's one leg that you don't get off the ground as it sweeps in, and both those pinchers come snapping around one of the Mercuria's legs. And I think you're going to take the -1, or the level 2 damage crushed limb as these pincers like shear through the metal of the armor protecting the Mercuria's back leg. So that's going to be the crushed limb damage, level 2. Unless you want to resist, I don't think you can mark armor here. You don't have enough load for your vehicle. You could resist. That would cost 2 quirks, huh? So that would put you...
all quirks...
Quirked
that
out.
would be a breakdown on your vehicle, which would be...
Complete breakdown, yeah. So
you
can't
fuck,
do
I
that.
always forget that.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm not going to resist. I'm going to take it. Don't really have an option.
All right. So let's I think, crushed limb, it snaps, it tears off like a big chunk of like the steel and wiring out of that leg. And then the Mercuria is able to kind of stumble a step or two away, this limb like hitting the ground and crumpling, non-functional.
Mm-hmm.
But you got omnipedal orientation. That's not the end of the world for the Mercuria.
Yeah.
But at that same time, the sandstorm starts blowing stronger around you. The wind picks up. The weather has come in now. You see behind you in the distance the lightning crash that had just threw off Carta's missed shot. This centipede is staring you down. It's destroyed one of your limbs. It's rearing back for another strike. I think maneuver at this point, you're going to get the -1 dice to it if you're trying to like dance away because of the damage that you've taken. Desmond's there in the cockpit, right? You're getting like the alarm sensors going off from the damage you've just taken. It's rearing up for another lunge. What is Desmond's play here? What is he doing?
Well, I think that sometimes in life, things come at you, and there's no way around it. The only way out is through. And I think in this situation, I'm going to have to get a little bit uncomfortable to get through this situation. All right. I think that I'm going to allow the centipede to get close to me, and then I'm going to try and melt his face off with the flamethrower.
Gnarly. Okay, you have one undeclared vehicle gear, so yeah.
Sometimes we have to make ourselves uncomfortable to unleash the flamethrower at close range.
Exactly.
So let's talk it out, right? This sounds to me kind of like battle, maybe?
Yeah.
I think that this is a desperate position, right?
Yes,
You've got a destroyed
yes.
limb. The weather's going nuts around you. This thing is coming. You're letting it get close. So I'm going to call this a desperate action. I think you get +1 dice to your vehicle roll here because of your daredevil move.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this is desperate. I'm going to call it great effect. I think the flamethrower here,
Nice.
Distinctly, this mech-sized flamethrower is like distinctly well suited for dealing damage to this like insect, right? Like this is the kind of thing it's really good against, right?
Since it's great against unarmored or lightly armored targets, and this is, I would consider that this.
Yeah, right. Like this thing has armor, but not in the mechanical sense. Not in like it doesn't have metal armor. I think it is pretty darn vulnerable to getting cooked up. So you're starting with 1. You could push yourself here by expending a quirk if you wanted. I could also give you a collateral die here, which I think is just going to be, if you want the collateral die, it is the level 1 harm to Desmond, not to the machine.
Yeah. Okay.
That is singed. I think that your some of your heat shielding has been torn off by this previous attack, and so you're like getting too hot. Yeah, overheated. Let's say less effect. Overheated, level 1 damage. Overheated for a collateral die if you want it.
Yeah, I'll take it. So
All right.
2d6.
Yeah, so overheated. Yeah, like you're sweating, pouring sweat in the cockpit as this thing fires off. Do you want to also push yourself, or are you gonna roll with 2?
Is 2 stress to push myself?
It's a quirk because you're in your vehicle.
Oh, it's a quirk. That's right. Yeah, let's go for it. Omnipedal orientation. I'm just stuck in this position now.
Because you have omnipedal orientation, right? You can adjust for having a missing limb in a way that another mech might be like completely like defenseless or unable to move. You can still like
I can shift the weight.
So that puts you at 3d6 then. Desperate, great effect. That's pretty money.
I'm trying really hard to think about the opposite of omni. Is that semipedal?
Bipedal, right?
Oh,
Bipedal.
yeah.
Yeah.
I guess so.
Yeah,
Or quadrupedal.
Monopedal.
A quadrupedal, yeah, right. Omnipedal, because it doesn't matter which direction it's facing, its limbs can reorient it. Yeah, I think that's 3d6. Desperate, great effect.
Let's go.
Let's rock and roll.
Oof.
Ugh.
Hey, I'll take it.
Yeah, read them out.
I'm glad. This is a 1, a 2, and a 4. So I'm glad I did all that extra bullshit.
Yeah, the 3 dice is what you needed. So a 4 makes this a mixed success.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I think I'm a fan of the players here. I think this is a really cool move, right? As this like centipede like kind of rears over you and it gets close, right? What does this flamethrower look like? Give me like a little taste of the action here.
I think that like there's just like one sort of porthole and like the machine gun, the minigun, slides back in to his head, and then a little, I'm trying to think like what, like an alien, they were like walking around the ship and they have like the little pilot light lit.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, cool.
So it sort of like comes out. There is a little pilot light that comes out, and then there's, the nozzle behind it, and then it just shoots.
Nice. Okay. So there's this gout of flame that like launches forth, and there's this kind of strange. At first, I think you think that the centipede is squealing as the flame starts to like lick over its underbelly and its like armored segments, and I think you realize that the squealing is like the hiss as like it starts to cook, right, and like the armor starts to crack and pop, right, and like it's like superheated like bug juice like geysers out the side of it.
What does it smell like? Really quick. I need the full experience.
Barbecue sauce.
Yeah, right. They're doing a lot of roasting of bugs on Ember, so I think it probably smells kind of good, right? You've grown up eating like different Ember, like large scale insects, right? It smells like a big old centipede barbecue. You know what I mean?
Better flip that centipede, Des. Don't like it too charred on one side.
But it rears up and it continues to like press forward, even as like its underbelly starts to blacken and smoke and cook, and it like inches forward. And I think like inside the cockpit you're like fully pressing down the button or whatever it is, pushing forward like the joystick to like put all of your energy into like emptying the fuel tanks on this. I think after a few long seconds where it seems like this just isn't gonna be enough, finally with like a like shudder and a twist, the centipede whirls around, and then I think actually rears back again and launches itself past you. It skitters in deeper into the Blossom Canyon, past you, past the wreckage of the rear locomotive, immediately getting lost in like the whirling sight of the dust. And as it like rears, like as the flame dies down, I think you can see the barrel of this flamethrower. It's been running hot as you've been doing this. It's like melted, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm junking this flamethrower.
Damn, that was awesome though.
It is out of commission for the rest of the mission. You'll have to spend material to like remove it from that slot and use it again later. And so that's a consequence on your mixed success here. You've succeeded at this like flamethrower gambit, but you have lost use of the flamethrower for the rest of the mission. As the centipede like dashes off into the mist, before we return back to Carta and the train that is like barreling down the tracks towards where he stands, I think I kind of want to cut our camera back to Rhodes and Hyacinth. And so Rhodes, well, last we saw you had speared Hyacinth with this particle lance and carried him on the weight of ascension through the mirrored portal, and it had shut behind you. And so it's like, I think as our camera like focuses on the swirling mists, cuts abruptly to a completely different scene. The colors, the palette of the entire scene, wildly different, right? We're in a realm of like silvers and blues and teals and iridescence. And you are, what does it look like, right? It looks like almost you're like in a hall of mirrors. You are in this sort of like this ocean of reflections spreading out around you. All of these faceted prisms of reflection, and each of them shows, it's like a different scene of Blossom Canyon, right? A different angle of looking at it from a different perspective, over and over, multiplied, reflected, tessellating constantly. Like these reflections are folding into each other and unfolding, splitting and merging again, infinitely going out. And as they move further away from you, you see that they're not just reflecting Blossom Canyon. There are other places. There are other sites. Some of them are like places in Ember you recognize. Others are like deeply alien spots. And as they go further and further away, they get like harder and harder to kind of discern, right?
Yeah, love that.
And there's this kind of like ambient kind of glow that like flows through all of this. And I think, you just know this, Rhodes. As you enter this space, you know it because the Redshift knows it, and you two are, if not the same thing right now, you're closer to the same thing than you normally are. You have entered a different aspect of reality. You have gone to a more, capital F fundamental level of it. Hyacinth, the weight of ascension is floating in front of you. Multiple panels on the machine are shattered or are broken. There are huge furrows across the ceramic armor on the chest. I think one of its arms has been completely torn away by the fierceness of your previous attack. And as it's floating in space in front of you, I think you can see leaching from the environment around it, this quicksilver starts to like kind of flow out of these mirrors and onto it. And those furrows already start to fill. And as Hyacinth floats there in front of you, you're filled with this, like, looking at the ceramic shape of the weight of ascension, right? This obvious concordat machine. I feel like an enmity, this kind of rage starts to well up inside of you. But it's not just coming from you, right? You can feel, we've said this before, when you're in this sort of state with the Redshift, it's like you're connected to it on a deeper level.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't see anything here, but I think you can almost feel, it's like there's someone watching what's happening right over your shoulder, standing right behind you. But the difference there is not, it doesn't feel like a person standing behind you. It feels like there's a blue whale behind you. There's this, like a behemoth, something so massive you can barely comprehend it, is kind of like standing there right behind you, right at the edge of your mind, watching out. And that's where this like anger is flowing from as you watch Hyacinth's broken form floating in front of you. And I think, distorted, feeble, crackling through the comms, it's Hyacinth's voice. And he's laughing softly as the weight of ascension kind of floats slightly back further into this like sort of hall of mirrors, this realm of mirrors. And I think his voice, he laughs. You can feel it, can't you? The machine knows what's here. It can feel it. And I think as he asks it, right, you do feel something, right? There's like, whatever your connection is to the world above or below the place you just came from, as you like look out through each of these portals at like these mirrored panes that reflects an image of Ember, you sense like this fundamental energy pouring through, right? It's whatever's on Ember calling out, even through this mirrored realm, to you, to the machine, right? And the Redshift can sense it too, right? It's that there's like a connection there that wants to be made but hasn't yet.
Yeah, that's sick. This is very cool. Like in my head, I'm just kind of rollicking through this. I think from Rhodes' perspective, like I have been imagining this kind of like rage engine or this like fundamental connection to the machine as being like almost like a pounding in the temples, right? Like I think it pushes Rhodes, even to like a limit. And I think is there like a register? Am I standing on flat ground, or am I also kind of in this amorphous?
No, you're floating in a vista. And I think even as like you tentatively test out like what a movement feels like here, you don't move so much as you like tessellate, like refract yourself forward, right? Like,
oh, cool.
When we cut out, we don't see the Redshift like move its arm. It's as if these reflections reassemble into the position the Redshift's going to be in. You've moved into a less objective and more representative version of reality, right?
Cool.
And I think there's an element too here, like you're like, your reactors are burning hotter. And I think Rhodes knows it's probably not okay to be here for this, like for too long. Like there's like, this is not a place that if this machine is meant to be in, or even if it's meant to be here, that doesn't mean that it's good for you to be here, especially not knowing. Hyacinth has at this point centuries of, thaumaturgical training under the Concordat. Rhodes has never done anything like this. And so, there's like an element of like fraying, I think, on your mind as you just try and kind of comprehend what you're looking at, what is happening around you.
Throws a lot of my prep into disarray here.
Apologies.
It's good. I think, from Rhodes' perspective anyway, I think even this kind of like throbbing, this like thrumming of pushing reality to its kind of limit here, I think for Rhodes anyway, in this place, there's very little distinction between the machine and person. Like I think feels blurry. And even like looking up at Hyacinth, I think like the weight of ascension and image of Hyacinth and like Rhodes's, memory, I think is blurred, right? Like it almost looks like him with the ring of these like petals around.
Absolutely.
What is this place?
Hyacinth, like, again, crackling, right? Like, at this tinny voice on the radio, sounding even more distant with each moment that passes. This place is a step below, a fundamental reflection of what is above, a passing image. You shouldn't be here, Rhodes.
And yet it's all too familiar. You and I are bound by fate, Hyacinth. I know this now. You and I have crossed swords in the light of a dozen stars, if not more. Here, higher, lower. When does it end for you? What do you think you'll get from this? What do you want from this barren world?
In response, the weight of ascension starts to move closer to you. Tessellating, reflecting, right? There are two of it. And as they fold into one, it is another step closer, and again, and again. And as it approaches, I think Hyacinth says, "You're right. The time for swords is over. It's a time for keys. It's a time for opening doors. What I want lies beneath." And I think you know that now too, Rhodes.
Hyacinth.
And I think the weight of ascension's remaining arm reaches out, but it's also, right, as it reaches out, it is the weight of ascension, but it is also Hyacinth standing in front of you, missing an arm, reaching out to your shoulder, and you are the red shift, and you are also just Rhodes Rampart floating in this space, right? The dual images imposed over each other. You have the key. Let's use it together, Rhodes. No more fighting. Join me.
Why, Hyacinth? You are a fundamental miracle, walking on two legs. You carry the spark of creation way more tangibly than any scripture. Surely you realize your very existence threatens their dogma. Is this you or is this them?
I think as you ask it, right, the reflection starts to shift and like fold in and unshift again. And it's like a time lapse. The ceramic ornamentations are stripped away with each flickering until it is like the Hyacinth from Feldspar, still damaged in the way that Hyacinth is currently, or the way the weight of ascension is currently, right? But it's the armor and the ornamentation you remember from your days back on Feldspar.
Beautiful. You are, as I remember, fearsome, strong, driven, ambitious, and flawed.
I think Hyacinth starts to speak. And as he starts to speak this time, I think it takes you a moment to realize he's not speaking to you anymore. He doesn't understand what your purpose is, what you can do, what we can do together. Come with me. Fulfill the thing you were meant to be. And as he starts to speak, as he says these things, I think you can feel that bulk, that behemoth, this leviathan in your own mind start to stir, start to shift. As Hyacinth starts to speak, not to you, but to the red shift in this place. You realize all at once that, like, the longer you're in here, you can feel the red shift pulling in the ambient fundamental energy that's leaking into it from this like place below, and your grasp on the machine is slipping. The person who's in charge is changing, maybe, is what's happening, but it's reaching out to
the redshift is
right. The redshift is I think pressing forward, right? Like in this shared consciousness that you have with it right now, with the rage engine active, with the second form active, in the same way that Rhodes kind of like lost control of himself all those years ago, at Orcus 5. I think you recognize the same kind of sensation where the machines, starting to like reach out and almost take control over you and your control over it, right? It's blurring the lines between the two of you. And Hyacinth's cajoling it, right? It seems like he's driving that on as he addresses it directly.
What can I do here? Like, I think, Rhodes is, I don't even know if the voice travels or anything. I think maybe, actually, probably most striking here, I think Rhodes calls out, right? It's like, stop. But it's not the kind of chorus, right? Like that flanged voice. It's just Rhodes' voice. I want to try and pull it back, right? Like I want to maintain control here. I can feel the kind of machine slipping away. Do I need to roll or something? Like,
I think it's a roll, probably, right? Like,
yeah.
This maybe is like a command, right? If you're shouting stop at it, when you command, you force immediate obedience. I don't know. You tell me. What does this look like?
This isn't like a new idea, right? Like Rhodes has some awareness that the kind of like power of the redshift is fearsome, strange, not his own, right? Like as a probably, right? Like this may be some reflection with Hyacinth. I think probably knows that this is stolen good, like a heretical use of this thing and I'm torn between like sway and command, but I think command is probably the right role here. I have 1 in command, so I'm gonna roll it.
Sure, you could push yourself. 2 stress.
I'll take 2 stress. That gives me 2d6.
I think this is still desperate. I think this is desperate standard. I think you are in such an alien realm, so out of your comfort, dealing with forces that are so much larger than yourself. Couldn't be anything but desperate.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna roll 2d6. Oh, it's a 1 and a 4. I think like before we spin it out anyway, Rhodes, like I think at some there's a brief separation, between him and this and the redshift itself, right? Like in this kind of form, and the images flash before our eyes is Carta, Des, everyone we've met in Coronatus, the dust cutters, all these people that depend on Rhodes. And bucking control here means risking them.
And so I think when you yell stop that second time, it is with the resumption of both voices, right? Like you yell it the first time as Rhodes, and the second time you yell it is the voice of Rhodes and the redshift again in chorus, as you kind of reassert your control in this relationship, or your like, your equality in this union between you and this ancient machine. And I think as you yell it the second time, because what else do mirrors do in a story, right? There's a shattering of mirrors along this hall as you say it the second time, right? Cracks that run through as they break apart. And I think Hyacinth recoils. And do you have something to say here? Because I think I have the consequence for your mixed success. But if you have, you've got a beat here to say one more thing before whatever happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just like gonna keep pushing, right? With that kind of chorus of voices, right? Like you will not dictate the fate of this machine. Whatever they've promised you, what station you imagine they will award you, will be taken away. You'll die as many as your faithful have, alone and desperate, on a barren world far from home, laying your life down for a cause that will not remember your name. But I will. And I think I'm going to try and attack here. Oh, wait, sorry. What's the cause of this?
Well, so here's the thing. I think your success here is going to fill Hyacinth's clock, actually. I think that success there is enough to put him to 8 out of 8. I think the scream, like the reassertion of control, I think that's enough to put an end to Hyacinth's resistance. And I think as you say these things back to him, right, it's like another shattering of mirrors behind you. And it is one of these fragments of mirror that kind of floats into the space between you and Hyacinth. And I think, again, Hyacinth is looking at you, but he's not looking at you. He's like looking up and past you, right? I describe his presence as like, feeling behind you. He's addressing that still. Hyacinth says he would trade it all for a worthless ball of dust, but I will write our name in the stars. And then I think Hyacinth grips one of these like broken shards of mirror, Hyacinth, the weight of ascension, the two flickering between those two images, and drives it forwards into Rhodes's chest, but also into the redshift's chest, right? They're the same, they're flickering. Yeah. And because that was a mixed success, this is a consequence on a desperate action, right? As we said, this was desperate. Mm-hmm. So Rhodes, I want you to take the level 3 harm.
Ah, shit.
Quicksilver infection.
Harm or damage? Harm?
That's harm. This hits the pilot, right? Because like I said, these images flicker between whether it's the redshift, whether it's you. I think you can resist this if you want to. I think this is like a resolve resistance here. But as this shard of mirror stabs into your chest, into the machine's chest, it liquefies instantly, spreading out, over every like little crack in your armor and your frame and your chest, right? The same way that it has in Hyacinth, the liquid starts to pour over you.
Oh, shit. Yeah, I'm going to resist that.
So you do get an extra d6, so this will be 3d6. You'll take 6 stress minus the highest result. And so we'll lower it by 1. This will take it down to a level 2 damage. Or level 2 harm, rather, sorry.
All right, here's 3d6. It's a 5.
All right, so you only take 1 stress. What does the resisting this look like, in Resolve?
Oh, I mean, I think this is like... it hurts, right? Like, this is like a kind of fundamental harm. Yeah. And I think this like is like anime screaming, right? Like, and I think that if we saw the kind of like ripples of that fundamental energy, like echoing across the plant life in the Blossom Canyon, I think that you actually kind of see this rippling, like in that kind of, melting, like ferrofluid iridescence, and we're seeing that like kind of flicker. It's probably not that different. Like it mostly looks like, Rhodes and back and forth. But I think that you see that rippling going instead of outwards, almost like kind of when you see the ferrule fluid like on a speaker or whatever that, like sand on a speaker, like where it's forming those patterns. And I think stops rippling outwards and ripples inwards towards this shard in the chest. And I think you can actually see the quicksilver like boiling, right? Like, or like bubbling and fizzing. And I think it maybe retracts like a little. I think it's still probably in the chest, but
yeah, you still have the level 2 harm quicksilver affliction here. It is not as bad, but you don't get away from this like unscathed, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's in there.
I think the force of this blow, this is like kind of the secondary consequence right here, or this is also Hyacinth's escape, right? As it stabs into your chest, the redshift is pushed backwards into, I think, one of these mirrored panes. And I think he's sending you out of this realm, right? I think this is like Hyacinth's exit is, retreating back into the mirrors to heal himself up. He's pushing you back out. And I think probably over Desmond or somewhere like near Desmond, right? You see one of these shimmery mirrored portals open up, and then falling backwards and down through it is the redshift in this secondary form, still blazing bright with iridescence, right? Almost like a comet shooting out of the sky out of one of these mirrored portals.
Yeah.
Crashing into the dust below.
Yeah, I'm imagining it like when you see those slow motion videos of like a drop hitting water, like that like splash up. Like I think that iridescence even like splashes for a second kind of before congealing back to this form. So you're basically saying he hit me so hard I broke through a pane of reality back to the kind of material realm.
Yeah, this is like him kicking you through the comic book panel and back into the rest of the narrative.
Cool.
And so, I think the redshift, crashes into the ground in front of you, Desmond, after falling out of one of these mirrored portals. Having been gone for like probably what felt like minutes to Rhodes, but I think it's probably been about like 45 to 50 seconds in real time.
Oh.
And the storm has picked up, and I think, there's like a beat here. I don't know if Des has anything to say at Rhodes' reappearance. Otherwise, I think we'll bring the camera back to Carta.
I think, like, camera zoom, right, like, from this kind of, I don't know what it is. Not quite orichalcum, but, this like, sort of solidifying, right? And I think the redshift probably like it's cooling, right? Like I imagine also like you can see like, heat mirage, right? Like it's hot from this kind of like burning through like the fringe of reality. And I think in this sort of like crater as the sort of like melting iridescence congeals, I'm going to revert back to the like main form.
Classic, yeah.
I think it's a good time for that. So like, I'm going to switch, or like the machine kind of reverts back to like a more standard version of like the redshift, but
I limp over and I go like, you have a nice trip?
Get away from me.
Whoa.
Right. Like, and this is like my first immediate question. Is that voice flanged? Am I in control of the redshift, or is the redshift in control of me?
I think you are in control of the redshift again.
Okay.
As you come back, it has sort of started to go dormant, I think.
I thought you were asking Des, is my voice flanged? Which is...
Yeah. Hey, is my voice flanged? Do I sound flanged to you?
Maybe it's like the first word is, and then as you finish speaking, and you hear it too, Desmond, right? You hear like this doubling of Rhodes' voice that then goes away as he finishes speaking.
Yeah, it's like the that like Bilbo freak out, right? Where
yes, yeah.
Classic. Like one of those. But I think it does kind of like recede, right? And even in that like get away from me, like too sharp, right? And Rhodes like, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
where am I?
Dude, relax. We're right here, man. We're in Blossom Canyon.
What? Look, I think like Rhodes like takes a second, heavily disoriented, right? And even those kind of like throbbing, like I think probably still in some kind of pain here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, it hurts like hell. Your chest feels like it's on fire as this quicksilver. I think like you can feel like it doesn't hurt the machine. You can look down and see on your own chest, Rhodes, this patchwork of like quicksilver that has spread from a wound you now possess that you did not when you went into that place.
Yeah, I think Rhodes is like pretty erratic at the moment. And I think he's even kind of like in the cockpit, right? Like almost like just a pressure, can't breathe, heavy. And I think he even bust the cockpit open, right? Is like to get out of the machine. And I think I mentioned, the redshift sort of prone, like on its back here, cockpit kind of like rips open, and I think Rhodes climbs staggering out in something of a daze here. It probably apparent to you, Des, is like is this shard like literally in my chest?
There's not a shard anymore, but yeah, there's like this gleaming, like I think, on a spider web of quicksilver that is spread across your armor and your circuitry and the wiring of your chest and your torso. And yeah, Des, you can see it. It shines bright even against like the buffeting wind of the sandstorm.
Mm-hmm. A little souvenir from your trip.
I think it like his breath is shaking. There's a deeper truth, Desmond, bigger than our war.
Deeper truth? A realm of mirrors? Hey, buddy, we got a train to rob.
You bumped your head pretty hard, bud.
And maybe that's a good like cut for the camera, right? As Des says that to Rhodes, and Rhodes is having this freak out in the sand. Our camera kind of pulls back and away from them, like dolly shot down the track, past the chugging train to end up like right behind and over the shoulder of Carta. He's like standing there. The wind and the sand are buffeting around him, and the massive bulk of the front half of the anticipated arrival, this cargo train, is hurtling down the tracks towards you. The light from beneath it as its fundamental levitators carry it at increasing speed towards where you're standing. It's going to just run over you and through you unless you're able to stop it, right? As it tries to escape the canyon, Carta.
I think it, as the winds swirl and the dust kicks up, I imagine that the light of Rhodes coming through this mirror portal and falling back to the earth is still wildly bright through this.
Yeah, you see it. Sand. Yeah, it cuts through even somehow this storm.
And regardless of knowing what happened, Carta knows that Rhodes has returned back to us from wherever he was. And in that moment, I think he realizes that stopping this train and getting all of its payload was never really something that we had to do. And he's going to try to do what he can to stop it, but he wants to get back to the rest of the party. And in doing that, I think he makes up his mind and he kind of locks himself in to stare down the train, kind of playing chicken with it and waiting for a moment where he will still have time to move. He kind of lets go from the semaphore. And this is, I think, using the last of my gear, the drone carriers that he has on him. And releases several drones. I'm imagining like 5 kind of pop out. Not in a dissimilar visual to the flower petals coming off of a hyacinth. Like these drones kind of expand behind him. And because they kind of anticipate what Carta and the semaphore are doing, pause for a second and then shoot at the front of the train. Well, Carta tries to kind of dive out, and hopefully they are small enough. In his mind, what they're doing is small enough, carrying kind of attachable explosives, attaching to the sides of the train, or even getting into any of the crevices or open parts that the original salvo he fired when he jumped off the cliffside are left, like filling in there so that he is not in the way, but that it might explode or take more damage as it, shoots past him and he dives out of the way so that he can start going back up the canyon to the rest of the party.
So this is, the drone carrier is a scout specialist vehicle gear, which, says can launch several simple drones with a preset loadout directed to your controls, and then carry a pilot or vehicle gear. So we're using what did you say, the placed explosives for these, right?
Yeah.
I like that a lot. I think that's a sick visual. What is this? What move do you think you're using here to do this? Is this maneuver?
Yeah, it's...
Because you're using the vehicle to control you and the
maneuver.
drone. Yeah, that feels like maneuver. Out of all of these, that probably makes the most sense, right?
Yeah.
So that's 1 dice. I think this is desperate. I think desperate standard to start here. If someone wanted to assist you, they could. But otherwise, I think you have 1 dice. You could expend a quirk, but it would cause your vehicle to break down.
Do you know what? I think after, witnessing Rhodes being taken away and kind of coming back with Hyacinth, that having seen that at the Diadem Royale, like Carta understands that this is something beyond an understanding of what like they deal with on a day to day or like on Ember at all, and that he kind of accepts that it's fine for a little. That if the train has to go, it has to go. I want to, I want to get back to the rest of the party. So I don't think he's expending that quirk. I think he's using this that if it happens, it happens. It's going to be hopefully enough of a distraction to get him out of the way and back to at least the back end of the train where everyone else is. So I guess it's taken the one.
Unless somebody wants to assist you here, I think that's where you're at.
I mean, I guess if anything, I can shout through the comms as, just conveying that we're losing the front half of the train. If the back's locked, down for the count, we can count that as a win. Otherwise, this one's rolling on. We can try to send the arrow lifter after it, try to put some eyes on it. Otherwise, boys, they got to speed on that one.
On the train?
Yeah, on the front end. I don't know if, Rhodes is necessarily going to be the one to be able to do anything. But, I guess that's... Des, if you got anything that can knock it off its path, this would be the time.
Unfortunately, I think it's time to fish or cut bait. We're just going to have to... I think that we should just take what we have now and get the fuck out of here because, I think getting away with half of the payload is better than, I think it would be folly to try and go for the rest here.
Yeah, I'm with you as well.
You got to know when to roll them. You got to know when to fold them.
Yep.
So is Carter still going to make this roll?
I think he's still making the roll. I think it's, hopefully he'll, still out of the way of the train. If these drones do well, it will do something to stop it, hopefully. But otherwise, it's the last-ditch effort to make it stop.
Cool. I will note, this is a desperate roll. This will, if you fail, the consequences will be a desperate consequence.
Oh, right. Okay.
Just worth thinking about that before you make the roll. I like the roll. I think it's a really cool thing to do. That's the only reason I want to...
Then should I junk the last thing and take the semaphore out of commission? I mean, our biggest threat is out of the way, right?
Yeah, I think...
Do you know what? You're right. Maybe this is the time to take the semaphore out of action, take that last open gun turret. Maybe it's even like in sending these drones out, Carta hops out of the semaphore.
You're getting away, but you're leaving the semaphore there.
And if it gets hit, it kind of gets hit, and I'm gonna have to spend some time doing some rebuilding. Fuck. Okay.
Cool. We've never had a breakdown before. This is exciting.
Yeah, let's do that.
So you take an extra dice then. You're going to expend that quirk as Carta leaps from the semaphore, setting the drones forward to try and stop the train. So the way that this works, I just want to talk about what this means. When a vehicle exhausts all four of its quirks, 4 quirks in most cases, its pilot can either send the vehicle limping home quietly or push past its limits. So if you push past its limits, you can take a dire action after this.
Okay.
So I guess we can roll this dice and then we can kind of see what you want to do.
What would the dire action, what does that entail, and what is that?
It involves so basically it would let you continue taking actions, even though you don't have quirks with your vehicle, but on a result less than a 6, you're kind of like, you lose your momentum and you receive 3 damage at the end of the scene. Whereas otherwise you're just going to get a breakdown tick. And what the breakdown tick means is that semaphore will be gone for the rest of the scene, and then you will have to modify one of your quirks after this mission to add like a negative modifier to it.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Let's roll, and we'll just, if one of the quirks got to get modded, we can do that.
Yeah. So
rolling 2d6 then.
Yeah.
All right. Let's hope for the best. Rolling 2.
Nice.
6 and a 5. Woo! All right. Okay.
So I think Carta leaps from the semaphore and is, I think running through the sand, right? And, this is like big cinematic action movie spectacle as these drones fly forward and hit it and drop these bombs. And it's like, ka-chunk, ka-chunk, explosion, explosion. And the train starts to rock left and right. And I think as it's, this bulk is speeding, bearing down on the semaphore, one last explosion on like the near the bottom back of the train goes off, and it sets off a reaction inside the locomotive. And I think, moments before it would crash directly into the semaphore, Carta's looking up from the sand, the train lists suddenly with the force of these explosions and turns to the right, careening into like the dust and the canyon wall, like crashing, and each of these cargo cars whizzing right alongside the motionless semaphore as the locomotive crumples against the wall and then just kind of like drags itself through the dust for yards and yards past it,
stopping at the feet of the semaphore, just as it slowly slides.
Yes,
just right up to the feet of it.
And it comes to this creeping halt, just right next to the semaphore, but the front locomotive just destroyed, right? Explosions rocking the inside. Its engines die, and the whole thing comes to rest on the dusty floor of the canyon wall. And I think with both engines destroyed, with the Dirks taken care of, with the centipede scared off, as the sandstorm rages around you guys, you have kind of accomplished your mission here. These 4 cargo cars are open to you, and I think
we crawl through like kids at a candy shop, showing off cool little weapons that we have found.
I don't know how much more we want here, right? We can talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Rhodes is, right? Like, I think Rhodes is sort of like heaving or sort of beside him. I don't think he's fucking interested in this train at all anymore.
Understandably, yeah.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know if you boys agree that like with this kind of lockdown and knowing that it was a semi-secretive like train that not a lot of people are like looking for it, like maybe are we kind of like with the assistance of the drovers helping us with some of our
I like to think that maybe like Eleanor Fade is gonna roll up with the
broken needle,
the threaded needle. Yeah,
toot toot.
Yeah, the threaded needle shows up and starts loading us piecemeal back into what they they're
Zed and Bitter land the helicopter, or the lifter.
Yeah.
I think I pull up the Mercuria. I jump out and I start, we're like, all right, let's get this open. Come on, we gotta be in and out. They're gonna start getting suspicious why it isn't here. We need to like start loading this up. Come on, Rhodes. Get it together, man.
I think Rhodes just shaking his head.
Yeah, give him a minute.
Fine, suit yourself.
No.
I'm here to do the thing that we came here to do.
Then do it.
All right. I am doing it.
You don't understand.
I don't understand what the fuck you're talking about.
It's seen us.
What is seen us?
I think like Rhodes just sort of like leans back and like hands on forehead, the other. It's bigger than this. None of this shit matters. We're not ready. I'm not coming back.
What do you mean you're not coming back?
I have some things I need to do.
Des kind of rolls his eyes and he was like, all right, man, well, good luck with that. I think, he starts rolling up the sleeves on his pilot coveralls. He's like, me, I'm going to get to work. All right. I'm going to start, gathering these resources.
I think Rhodes would try and get in touch with the dust cutters are still around.
Yeah, I think as this is happening, as Zed and Bitters come down, as the threaded needle, like their trucks and their their train cars start coming up this pathway. You hear the zipping of the dust cutter bikes as they wind their ways down the canyon walls again, joining you at the site of the salvage. Right, they were promised a chance to like look through some of this.
Yeah, and I think like it's the salvage, this like cooked and sizzling, the carapace of this giant centipede, and I think like as Cygnus comes up, I think Rhodes is kind of like whatever, nudging it with his foot of this like huge centipede thing. And I think would pull Cygnus aside, right? And I have to find Abel Selkirk.
Yeah, I think
I know you know him. Take your salvage. I'll come with you. I need you to take me to him.
I think Cygnus, nods, right? He doesn't entirely understand what's happened here, but he can see, just in the way he can tell when someone's going through something.
Oh, yeah. I think that this is that drover exchange we saw before, like with that dagger, that like ceremonial dagger, which is like that. Right? I think Rhodes pulls it here, right? Like and hands it over, which is like, I'm serious.
Yeah, and right, like I think there's an extra bike in the wings, right? That Cygnus offers you, and they dig through some of the scrap, they load up their bikes, and as the ring forces arrive to start like digging through this, I think if Rhodes will leave with them, the dust cutters will take off towards wherever their caravan is here, hidden out in the basin. And then I guess you're leaving.
Yeah, like even though I didn't like scar or like stress out, I think this is like shaken Rhodes, and the thoughts going through my mind is what if we're wrong? This is maybe I'm wrong, right? Like, and we can dig into this in downtime, but I think this is kind of like shaken Rhodes a bit to the core, like from whatever this thing is, that presence, I think challenged a bit of what Rhodes had really believed.
Then yeah, I think unless anyone is here, unless there's something else here, I think that the dust cutters, they like load up, they're taking, pieces of like technology off of the trains, like gun ports, things like that, ammunition stores, whatever they can fit on their bikes. And then they ride off with Rhodes, leaving you, Carta and Desmond, to sift through the Concordat cargo that's on these trains with the threaded needle and your cohorts.
Yeah, I think there's probably like one last long look, right? Like between Des and at least from Rhodes, right? Like it's a heavy parting glance, because I don't think that Rhodes believes that it's not worth putting it on them, right? Like
I don't think we clearly don't, or at least Des does not comprehend.
Doesn't want.
Okay.
I don't want you to.
Couldn't possibly comprehend. I think
in my mind,
Maybe.
It's like as we're settling this down, and Rhodes is about to ride off with the dust cutters, that like he's getting on his bike, Des is standing on maybe like the caboose or whatever of the threaded needles train, they're giving eyes to each other. Well, Carta's like maybe a train car back on the roof, overlooking their troubled goodbye, not understanding what Rhodes has gone through, but knowing that Des is being a bit dismissive of what's going on there. And I think that you see the kind of like 3 levels of what's going on as Rhodes drives off. That's the visual to me. Driving off into the dust, Carta up above a little bit of it all, and Des going back to doing some work.
Yeah, I think that's a good end. I also want to roll credits on that. We said, no one to hold him and no one to fold him, but end credit here, Kenny Rogers, baby.
Kenny
Rogers.
Yeah. Well, a lot of questions to answer here, including what was in this cargo train. But I think that's maybe something we can kind of address when we come back to the start of our next downtime session, as we follow Rhodes on his quest to find Abel Selkirk and discover more about what the true nature of the Red Shift and the mysteries of Imber are.